My name is Michael, and I am welcoming you to our virtual bonbon tasting today. And welcome to Chihuahua Chocolatier. I would like to first introduce the company. At Chihuahua Chocolatier, we make deliciously engaging chocolate experiences, and we have been around for 18 years. Now, Chihuahua might be a name that you think is a little difficult to pronounce, but we are going to give you a little guideline. So, you chew, and then you say wow. And we like to say, like, if it's not a wow, it's not a Chihuahua. So this is the way you can pronounce the name correctly. Now, Chihuahua is a region in Venezuela that produces the finest cacao in the world, and we chose the name as Venezuelan to represent the high quality of our product. And today, in this virtual world, we are going to enjoy our chef's favorite bonbon selection, and we're also going to talk a little bit about possibilities of pairing it with wine. So we're going to start with our first one. And again, I want to just make sure that you understand. The only rule with chocolate is that there's no rules, okay? So now all I'm going to talk about is some guidelines when we're talking about pairing chocolates with wine and also other types of beverages. So the first bonbon or truffle that we're going to taste is our almond truffle. The almond truffle is one of our original truffles. It's a very traditional European truffle. So we grab some sugar, we caramelize it to an extreme level so that it's nice and toasty, and then we add almonds and hazelnuts in it. We get this really firm brittle, and we grind it all to make this nutty butter taste kind of a texture, and then we add milk chocolate to it so that we can actually play and make it into our truffles. Then we dip it in milk chocolate, and we roll it in toasted almond slivers and also pistachios. This is a very traditional praline, so you'll see that it has very sharp tones of caramel with some very nutty notes in the flavor profile. So please enjoy this, and I will let you know how you can pair this with some wine. You can't go wrong with hazelnuts and chocolate. Now for wine pairing, I'd like to give you a first overall kind of guideline. The first guideline is milk chocolate goes best with white wines. The second one is dark chocolates go best with red wines. And then of course, dessert wines go well with any chocolate. Now sometimes people want to taste champagne with chocolate. And the champagne is normally considered brut, which means very dry. So the first guideline, not a rule, but a guideline, is that you want to stay away from super dry wines. If the wine is bone dry wine, you don't want to have it with chocolate. A guide for the champagne would be if you grab a champagne and you add some drops of creme de cassis or maybe some chambord, some raspberry liqueur, and you turn the champagne into what's called a Kir Royale. So you're elevating the sweetness level of the champagne and makes it very friendly with chocolate. So that's the first guideline. In this case, we have a milk chocolate, very nutty flavor. So you can look for nutty Chardonnay, buttery Chardonnay would work well. Stay away from the more acidic wines that are good for your fish, but not necessarily good for your chocolate. So here I have a nice buttery Chardonnay, and I am going to enjoy it with my chocolate. And again, there's no rule. Many people ask me, is it chocolate first, champagne, or wine then? Or wine first and chocolate? No rules. Sometimes we're so eager about the chocolate that it goes first. And I have to be honest, sometimes I'm so eager for the wine that it comes first. Oh, so this was wonderful. You can, when you're pairing wines and chocolate also, it works in two ways. Sometimes by balance and contrast, and sometimes by augmentation. So if you have a chocolate that has some nutty notes to it and a wine that also goes into that area, so you're going to have a more of a nutty expression. If you have caramel notes, then with a more caramel note wine, they'll play together. And sometimes on both sides, if you have a caramely wine and a nutty bonbon, also works really well by balance. So that is the almond truffle, very traditional European style confection. Our next one is our rosemary salted butter caramel chocolate. This one is actually quite special because it actually starts crossing over, something I love to do, crossing over from savory to sweet side of the culinary world, right? So when you start messing around with things that don't belong in this side, but really work well when you put them together. In this case, rosemary is a very savory type of herb, so it's confusing a little bit when you have it in a caramel, but it works wonderfully well. And proof of that is that this bonbon won prize at the International Chocolate Competition in London. So it has been recognized internationally. And I love it because it's that beautiful balance, the salt, the rosemary, and the caramel. It's perfect. So this is a soft caramel too, so you want to watch out it doesn't drip over your beautiful cloth. You see how it drips? Wow. You should have smell-o-vision or taste-o-vision or something because this is so delicious. The rosemary is just so elegant in the background with this beautiful, super nice, rich caramel, very buttery, that I can guarantee you that's going to go really well with my Chardonnay also. You can also try some like Madeira wine with this. Sometimes the beer world can help you out if you have craft type beers that have a lot of flavor. With this one, I think I would stay with the Chardonnay for sure. So if you allow me, I'm going to eat the whole thing because it's just too good. Oh my God, that was good. Now when you're doing a pairing with your friends, I'm going to let you in a secret. The good thing about this is that once you do the first pairing, the second pairing, and the third pairing, and then you realize that all the pairings work. You know, it's like magic, right? Everybody's happy and just pairing and you're crossing over. But I always suggest that you want to make sure that you try things differently so you can see what doesn't work and what works. So if you keep some of the Chardonnay and you want to try it with the dark chocolates, you'll see how it doesn't work. Same if you come from the red wine and you want to eat it with the milk chocolates, it's going to be too aggressive. So going into now the dark chocolates, the red wine and the tannins are like the cacao solids in the dark chocolate. So those tannins need to have a good counterbalance, otherwise they overpower the experience. So if you have a super tannic wine that is just going to be too strong for the very mild chocolate, that's why we don't use it for the white or milk chocolates. The white wines don't have those levels of tannin, so they work best. My third entry here is a super fun one. A long time ago, while traveling in Italy, I found out that in many places they serve these fresh strawberries and they drizzle some aged balsamic over them. And they do that also with vanilla ice cream, which is incredible too. So when I saw that, I was like, what are you doing? Again, crossing over, it's beautiful, right? So you have the strawberries and then the balsamic on top, and it tasted wonderful. So when I came back here, I really wanted to make a caramel that would kind of express the same experience. So I made the caramel with strawberry pulp and then infused it with balsamic vinegar. And it comes out beautiful because you have acidity and sweetness, lots of depth and fruit flavor, and it's just a magical thing. So this one, I'm going to pair with a Zinfandel wine. Now I chose a Zinfandel wine because even though Cabernets are usually the most common wines that people drink, they tend to be a little bit too dry and too tannic. Now Zinfandels tend to be a lot more fruit forward. So any red wine that is fruit forward and has some kind of a very tamed or round tannins, and if you can have some almost residual sugars in it, some sweetness, but just barely, those would be really good chocolate pairing wines. And the Zinfandel usually comes like that, very fruit forward, kind of sweet, super nice, and a lot of body too. So I'm going to enjoy this one. This one is also a soft caramel. So I like the caramels to be kind of soft and runny. I think they just give you a way better experience than when you have to chew. Like the best strawberry jam you can ever have inside dark chocolate. Now I'm going to have a little bit of wine. Oh yeah. This has more oaky notes to it that now gives the experience a whole new dimension. I wish you'd be here. That way I wouldn't eat anything. I would be barely sharing. Oh, that was good. Again, beautiful combination. You can try some Pinot Noir, some Merlots. Again, the Cabernets are super tricky. So, but then again, just have fun. So, now we're gonna go into a beautiful classic French confection. This is the wild truffle. And just the reason, why it's called wild truffle is because, as you know, there is something called the truffle, which is a mushroom. Usually these mushrooms are down in the dirt, and they come out and they look like little dirty balls, right? So when the French invented the wild truffle, they toss it in cacao powder, so it looks a little bit like a dusty, dirty little thing. This is a ganache, so it's cream and butter and chocolate. So this confection is the most traditional confection. And I'm going to give you quickly an explanation of what a truffle is and what a bonbon is. So the truffles for me are confections of free form that have an outside layer that's other than chocolate. So as we have the almond truffle, has an outside layer that's all these nuts. This one has cacao powder. And then of course, like every rule, there's an exception, which is coming up next. But the bonbons are like the rosemary caramel. It is a molded. So the bonbons are confections of regular form that have an outside layer that is chocolate. So there's really not much of a difference between them except the shape. Because you can have a ganache like this, or you can have a ganache inside a molded shell. So I'm going to try the wild truffle. This is super delicate, and we do this by hand. And the way we do this is that we just smear some chocolate around it so that we have a very thin layer of chocolate around it. We don't have a thick shell. So you can really enjoy the suppleness and the softness of the ganache inside. Wow. Again, this one. Who do we pair it with? As you get in the darker side of the chocolate, the pairing gets more complicated, but more fun too. So I will try it with the Zinfandel wine, which I think it should be good enough because it's very oaky too. This particular one. And it works well, but you start seeing a little bit of a disparity of acidity and a deep, dark chocolate taste. So for me, this takes me to more of a sweeter wine, maybe like a port wine. So if you have this with a port wine, the port wine is adding some sweetness and fruitiness to the very dark chocolate experience. And it also takes me to like single malt Scotch whiskey. So for me somehow, when you have a single malt Scotch whiskey, which has all these complexities and flavors, I just want to reach over to grab a piece of dark chocolate. I think it just works so wonderful with it. So I invite you to taste some single malts. It works best with single malts than some blends because the single malts have all these layers of their particularities versus the blend that tends to taste very similar. And then of course this one with the coffee, this one is just, this is the king of the confections, the wild truffle. What a luxury. My job, I get to eat chocolate and tell stories. How fun. I must have done something right in previous lives. All right, so I'm gonna go to the last one, last but not least. Now, if you notice, I did follow a sequence. I didn't talk about that at the beginning, but it's a sequence I would recommend you to do it if you're gonna do a tasting. If you're just gonna grab from the box a piece of chocolate, just grab anyone that calls you. But we went from the milk chocolate and we started increasing in complexity. Now the last one here, it's our favorite. This is our more signature truffle. And now this one is the contradiction of the rule because the outside layer is chocolate, but it is a free-formed confection. So this is a chipotle chili fudge center that is surrounded with popping candy. Popping candy, also known as Pop Rocks, or if you want to go more technical, it's carbonated sugar crystals. And what happened to those, when they hit the saliva, they explode and you have all this crackling going on. So this confection, it was something I wanted to do one time when I was traveling in Spain and I went to this super high-end 3 Michelin star restaurant. And I think I told this story before, but you know, we start repeating ourselves as we get older, but this is a great story because we sat in that restaurant and we get this little dish with these sausages and a little bit of a sauce, and then we eat it, and it all starts crackling and crackling in our heads, and it just starts going, and we just couldn't believe it. So at the end of the meal, I asked the chef, so tell me about this little dish. And he said, well, when people come here, they're in their heads, they're talking, discussion, work, politics, all these things. And the moment they eat this dish, which is a amuse-bouche, which is a welcoming dish from the chef, everything revolves around the meal. And I think, well, that was brilliant. So it took me a long time to get this popping candy that was not flavored with kind of funky flavors. It was all natural. And once I found it, I made this truffle. And I made it only for like a holidays. It was supposed to be like this firecracker in your head, kind of like over New Year's. And I just have to say, my mother is German, so she's very traditional German, you know, very correct. And I offered her the confection, and she went just crazy. She went like a child. She started putting it in people's mouths and everything. And I'm like, oh my God, we got something there. This is something that's worthwhile exploring. So what was supposed to be there only for 2 weeks or so ended up being a permanent bonbon in our confection lineup. And not only that, it actually turned into a bar. So we have the firecracker in a bar format, in a mini bar format, and we also have it in the truffle. The one in the truffle has the beauty of that fudge caramel inside. And so again, we have chipotle chili to give you a little bit of a smokiness, and all the crackling and popping that gives you all the crackling of a fire. And it also has that heat, because it also has a little bit of the chili, and the chipotle kind of helps in that generating that heat. Super fun confection. Now this one does have some strong guidelines of how to consume it. So you want to bite into it, and then just bite once, and don't do like me. Wow, it's like it's raining or something. It's like inside of your head is just going. So you might be tempted to start jumping on it and really biting it, but then you lose experience. So if you stay quiet, it does it on its own. So you're not really controlling the experience. The experience happens. So you can get very, very philosophical with this bonbon, honestly. This one, again, we'll try with Zinfandel, which is a super friendly wine for chocolate. And it works well. Because of the spiciness, which is not super spicy, just warms up your throat. You can use like a sweet wine, like a port wine or muscat wine, that kind of balances it out. Maybe a stout beer, like a big, robust, dark beer, would be really good, kind of like refreshing the whole experience. So this is the multi-sensory experience that everybody should have before they die. So I'm gonna have another piece, sorry. It's going. So people call it a party in your mouth. It's just so much action. I can still crunch and it'll probably shoot out of my mouth if I open it. Wow. What a grand finale. So this is it. This is our short journey through my 5 favorite confections. And I hope you enjoy them. Share them with your family. You know, if you want to pair it up, you want to just have them, explore them. We have many more confections too that you can explore. But these are really a great representation of what we're all about. You know, as a company, we're here to share joy with the world through deliciously engaging chocolate experiences. And I feel that these type of chocolates are super engaging. So you always have to comment about it, share with people, and it becomes a whole conversation. And that's why I find it so interesting and love doing what I do. So thank you for inviting me to this, I share with you, and you stay safe. You enjoy your families and your friends, and enjoy this new reality that we have, which is bringing us closer in so many different ways. Bon appetit.